Mrs. Giles. Today we're going to look at fixed assets and depreciation. I'm going to do a little bit of revision because that is needed before we're going to go on to depreciation. Let's just look again at spending money. When you spend money, the money in your bank is going to decrease. But how are you going to determine whether money is now spent on assets or on an expense? I'm going to use three examples. First one, bought a delivery van for the business on credit from ABC Motors for 280,000. Installed a navigation system for 18,000 and paid by cheque. Let's first talk about the first two transactions before I move on to the second one. Now, when you buy a vehicle, it costs you money, but you want to determine whether you've spent the money on an expense or an asset. Therefore, you're going to ask yourself, why did I buy the vehicle? To make deliveries, in other words, you're using the vehicle in your business. You're also going to use the vehicle for a number of months. It means that you're not going to buy the vehicle and to replace it within a couple of months. Other questions you're going to ask yourself is, will you be able to sell the vehicle after a number of years that you've used the vehicle? And will you be able to identify the vehicle as a possession? In other words, does it belong to the company or the business? Another question you can ask yourself is, can I see the vehicle? Can I touch it? Now, when you say yes to all of these questions, you know that you have purchased an asset. I just want to use another example. Say, for instance, you buy yourself a dress or a shirt. For how long are you going to use the dress? Well, if you're a teenager, maybe only for 3 months, but otherwise you will use it for longer periods of time, 2 years, 3 years. Now you can ask yourself, once you want to get rid of the dress or you want to replace your dress, can you take that dress or shirt and buy another one and sell the one that you have still in your cupboard? In other words, has it got money value? Yes. The same with the vehicle that you've purchased. You ask yourself, once I've used it for a number of years, does it still have money value? Yes. In other words, you've spent your money on something that has money value after you've used it for a number of years. So therefore, it's an asset. Let's look at the third example. I will get back to the navigation system a little bit later. Bought petrol for the van and paid 1,250 by debit card. Obviously the business's debit card. Right, if you ask yourself, have you bought something that's got money value? Well, if you used the petrol, it's gone. You haven't got it anymore. So you use it up and you cannot show anything for it. You can't touch it. You can't say, oh, yes, my petrol that I've just used. In that case, it will be an expense. We can also refer to if you spend money on chocolates. You eat the chocolates and it's gone. So it costs you money and therefore it's an expense. You can't show anything afterwards, after you've used it. So therefore it's an expense, and that's the difference between an asset and an expense, because an asset, after you've used it, it will still have money value. An asset, you can say something that belongs to you. Any expense, anything that you spend money on and you can't show anything afterwards, that is an expense. We can even look at an example like a red pen that you've purchased. Once you've used it up, it's not writing anymore, you're going to throw it away. It hasn't got money value. And that is how you determine that it is also an expense. Classification of accounts, recording of the transactions is very important. When you record a transaction, that you classify your accounts, and I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to look at the 3 examples that I have mentioned in the previous a few minutes. Read the first transaction, and then we're going to identify the 2 accounts for each transaction. Bought a vehicle on credit, 280,000 Rand from ABC Motors. So which 2 accounts are involved? Vehicle account and creditors control. How do I know it is creditors control? Because I've determined that this was a credit transaction and not a cash transaction. That's very important that you check each time when you record a transaction whether it is credit or whether it is cash. The second one, bought navigation system on credit from ABC Motors. Now, let's talk about navigation system. What do you do with the navigation system? You install it in the vehicle you're going to use. Once you've installed it, you're not going to take it out and replace it with a new one unless it's broken. The navigation system will remain in the vehicle. But what is very important, that the navigation system will enhance the value of the vehicle. Therefore, it's part of your vehicle and part of the value of the vehicle, and therefore it is an asset, and you're also going to record it in your vehicle account. You're going to enhance the value of the vehicle account. And then obviously we've bought it on credit, and it will be creditors control account. Let's have a look at the third one. Bought petrol and paid by debit card. Debit card is the same as EFT or by check. So it's a cash transaction. Your bank is going to be involved, and petrol because you've purchased petrol. Let's have a look on what the effect on the accounting equation will be. The first one, they bought the vehicle on credit. The 2 accounts involved here, vehicle and creditors control. What is the golden rule in accounting is assets equals liabilities and owner's equity. The accounting equation is the most important to remember when you do accounting. I can actually in fact tell you, when you start with any exam paper or any exercise, you write down for yourself A equals L plus owner's equity. So let's just identify the vehicle account. We have already determined that vehicle has money value, it belongs to us, you can touch it, you can see it, you can use it over a number of years, so it's an asset. Creditors control is an account that you open because you've purchased it on credit. And when you purchase anything on credit, you owe the money. Your liabilities refer to all the accounts where you owe money to somebody or an institution. So therefore, creditors control, when you identify it, it's a liability. The same with the navigation system. Again, you've purchased a navigation system that's going to enhance the value of your vehicle. Therefore, you're going to increase your vehicle account, and the creditors control is also going to increase you owe more money. Bought petrol and paid by debit card. 2 accounts involved, petrol and bank. Now let's have a look at petrol. Petrol is an expense, and an expense will affect your owner's equity. I will talk about it just now a little bit more, and your bank account is going to decrease because you're taking money out of your bank account. Let's look at the golden rule number 2. Now, golden rule number 2 refers to your accounting equation, but in that case, you're going to determine whether you're going to increase account or decrease account. In accounting, you know that if you debit one account, you must credit another account. But we are not going to look at which account must be debited and which account must be credited. Rather, we're going to look at the account and say, this account must increase or this account must decrease. And for that reason, we're always going to use the accounting equation. Counting equation is, let me just write it down. This is actually your crib note that you're allowed to write down when you start any exam paper or any exercise. You say, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. And this is where I'm going to show you what is the golden rule number 2. Your assets always increase on the debit side, always decrease on the credit side. You're going to ask yourself here, when you make an entry in any asset account, you're going to ask yourself, am I going to increase this account or decrease this account? Very important. When you look at your vehicle account, we increase the value of the vehicle. Remember now, if you refer to a vehicle account, you're not referring to the money in your bank, you're referring to the value of your vehicle. So if you've purchased a vehicle, you've purchased a navigation system, therefore you increased it. That is an asset. Always, any asset account that you identify, any account that you identify as an asset, it's going to increase on the debit side, decreasing on the credit side. Liabilities, remember what is a liability? It is somebody or like a bank institution that we owe money to. So liability is going to decrease on the debit side, increase on the credit side. Can you see what's the difference between assets and liabilities? And a liability, when you open a liability account, make sure that you know you're either owing the money to a person or to the bank institution or a third person. So minus plus, owner's equity, minus plus. So when you write out your little crib note, you're going to say assets plus minus, liabilities minus plus, and owner's equity minus plus. This is going to help you to determine which account you're going to debit or which account you're going to credit. So you're not going to think about the term debit or credit. You're going to say, right, I am going to decrease this account or I am going to increase this account. Interesting about owner's equity. We also owe money, but we owe money to the owner. He deposited his own money, capital, into the business. Therefore, the more he deposited or are going to deposit, the more we're going to owe to the owner. But what's also interesting here is that the owner has a goal with his business, and his goal is to make a profit. And when he makes a profit, when the business makes a profit, his owner's equity is going to increase. But how do we determine expenses, rather profit? It is your income minus your expenses is profit, and a profit will increase your owner's equity. Therefore, all expenses will always be debited. That means minus. When you open an expense account, like petrol, you will always put it on the minus side. When you receive any income, like rent income, you will always open then a rent income account and enter it on the plus side. Therefore, an asset in our account increases on the debit side of the account. An asset account decreases on the credit side. So you will put in, say for instance, you will put in another vehicle, you will put in money into your bank account, or you will take out. You will take out money out of your bank account, like here when we paid for the petrol, bank account will decrease. Any Liability account decreases on the debit side and increases on the credit side. And to ask yourself, do I owe more money to the creditor's control? Yes. Why? Because you purchased a vehicle on credit and you owe him money. So you're going to put it on the credit side. On the increasing side, the plus side. Any liability will decrease on the debit side. So when we pay the creditor, eventually when we pay, we will decrease our money in the bank and we will decrease the creditor's control account because you will owe him less money. So you ask yourself when you make an entry, do I owe more money or do I owe less money? When you make a payment to your creditor, you will owe him less money. Owner's equity, I've explained. Your owner, whenever it's a capital contribution, his capital account will increase, so therefore you will always make an entry on the plus side, which is the credit side of your capital account. When he takes money or trading stock or whatever for his own personal use, that will be drawings, and he will decrease his owner's equity. So when you open a drawings account here, and say he took a check for his own use, what's going to happen to his owner's equity? It's going to decrease, and you're going to make an entry on the debit side. For bank, you took a check, so that means your bank is going to decrease on the credit side because it's an asset. I've also mentioned again, owner's equity, expenses, income. Expense will decrease your owner's equity, therefore you will debit any expense account because owner's equity decreases on the debit side. And income will increase your owner's equity on the credit side. That was part 1. Please tune in for part 2. If you liked it, please send me a like. And any comments or any queries, please ask.